We're good to go.
Hi everyone, how are you guys?
Hey.
Good, good.
Glad to hear. Today is our first little meeting. I know Nicole, you have story to tell us about one of your experiences with one of your athletes. So I guess we'll just hear that and then kind of go from there. So whenever you're ready, take it away.
All right. Hey guys. This happened back in the fall, when I was working with women's soccer. One of the athlete that I'm about to talk about, it's very important to note that she has Tourette's. Um, so there was one day where leading like the week leading into the game, she and coach got into a pretty big disagreement and it like really affected her and like had her feeling really frazzled. Like every day of like, do I even want to play soccer? Do I even like soccer? Do I belong on this team? I'm a senior, but do I want to finish out my season? So on and so forth. And this game particularly, she got yelled at pretty harshly, for making a bad pass and not following it, like tracking it down. And after the game, she just couldn't seem to shake it off. And when she came up to talk to me about it, she very quickly began to hyperventilate and just like really start to almost like lose control of her feelings and everything. And I had her sit down and kind of like try and calm her down. I gave her some like ice to hold, just to try and like bring her back to kind of like her senses. Um, and it very quickly went 0 to 100, and she really started to hyperventilate, was starting to cry, couldn't breathe, and it didn't matter if like I would like tap on her shoulder or kind of like just try to redirect her. She was there physically, but she was not locked in. And it kind of started getting to the point that because she was hyperventilating and because she was crying, she was like passing in and out. And so like there'd be like moments where I'm pretty sure she lost consciousness and then came right back. But then her tics started to like really escalate and I couldn't get her to calm down. Um, and I was really worried that we are gonna have to activate EMS. And like while this whole thing is going on, coach comes back up the hill and is looking. He goes, "She's being dramatic," which does not help anything. And it almost like re-triggered the whole series of events. And it was just truthfully a lot for me, trying to like, you know, tap her, get her to talk, to get her to do anything, and she just wasn't responding, wasn't really acknowledging where she was, who I was, like all of that. And then her takes started to get intensified, and so it just felt like a this feels like something you only read in textbooks and you don't ever like actually experience. Um, so yeah, it was just an odd experience. I finally got her to calm down after like 15 minutes of her hyperventilating. Yeah, it kind of took to the point, or I think what really got her to break through was me like just verbalizing that if I couldn't get her to calm down in the next like 3 minutes, I was gonna have to call 911 because she was gonna pass out. And that I think jolted her back to like, whoa, that's serious. So yeah, that happened.
Well, thank you for sharing. I guess the first kind of question is like how did this experience kind of like shape you? Like what would you take? I guess like what's the main takeaway from this experience?
I guess for me it was more of just like I tried the hey, like, you know, trying different tactics to get her to come back and be present in the moment. Like we tried box breathing, but then her tics would
Hmm.
take over and she just couldn't. And then she would hyperventilate more because she couldn't. It honestly just really sucked. Just because I mean, I couldn't get her to tell me 5 things that she sees. You know, like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. Um, that didn't work. I couldn't get her to say words, let alone like hold her breath. So it was just weird. Like I feel like everything that we've been taught about how to handle a panic attack went straight out the room. Like
Mhm.
she didn't respond to anything. So it's pretty eye-opening that like yeah, you can have the tools in the toolkit, but sometimes you just gotta pray and hope for the best.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone's different too, so like clearly she didn't want to respond to any of that either.
Yeah,
And just so like we know, this wasn't an athlete you like knew, right? Like you didn't have any like rapport with them, or did you?
I did. I was
Okay.
seeing her when she was in season, like up to 3 times a week. Um, she has like bilateral ACLRs,
Okay.
torn meniscus. So she's unfortunately not a stranger to the
Yeah.
ATR, but yeah, I guess like one question I have for you guys is would is there like anything that you guys have tried that seems to work or seem to have worked well for you or anything? Maybe not necessarily in a situation like that, but just in general.
I can speak to that a little bit. Definitely the sports that I've been with have always been kind of mental health heavy. So panic attacks is something that I've become pretty in tune with dealing with. Of course, it's athlete to athlete. Everyone has a different kind of preference of how to be handled. But I've had a lot of really like good outcomes with usually the athletes that I've been dealing with, like they'll be kind of hunched down on the ground, so they'll be like below me and kind of close to the ground. I've had really good luck with like getting on their level and just like speaking with them kind of softly and mainly just like kind of affirming to them like they're okay, they are safe, no one is looking at them, no one is judging them, like and a lot of times, like, just kind of affirming to them that, like, whatever it is that they're thinking about that is triggering this panic attack, like, it's real and it's hard. Because I feel like, at least in my experience, a lot of the times, like, they'll be so scared that this is happening and they're like, why is it happening? Why is it happening? And they just will, like, kind of snowball into this bigger thing because, like, they know they're already upset about an event and then this is like a secondary event when it's like no like what happened was real like it's okay to be upset kind of thing. And then one thing that you mentioned that I've done in the past as well is having them hold ice. I feel like that is really good to like bring people back. Like that's kind of like enough of a jolt to their senses that always does really well, at least in my practice so far. I actually know this athlete that you're speaking about. I've worked with her in the past at times over at Columbia College, and she definitely the ticks can get the best of her sometimes. Is there any management that you guys use like just for her ticks at all, or things that work for her, or just kind of let it be?
She has a pretty good grip of it. Like it doesn't affect her academics or like her ability to play soccer, so it's not anything, at least this season, that needed to kind of be managed by us. Yeah.
Um, Honestly, I haven't really had too much experience with like more anxiety attacks. I guess a couple of kids have had, I guess you can call them anxiety attacks. I was at the high school last year at Camden. Um, but it was hard to say if that was true anxiety or more kind of like tantrum almost. So with that, I kind of just took them off to the side and like breathing was a big thing because they're also younger. So I feel like when you get to more college age, they know they know what like pure anxiety is versus like some high schoolers. So like I really did like coaching and breathing and stuff, but obviously your case is a bit different and that didn't necessarily help. But I don't know. I definitely could learn from both of your stories of what you guys do because again, I just haven't really had to come across that yet in my career.
How did the coach's involvement kind of guide that situation, Nicole? I know you said it possibly made it worse. Like, did they seem to care that they made it worse or notice or just kind of how did that coach kind of play into this scenario?
He, like before the game, he pulled me aside and he was like, "Hey, I don't know if this athlete has brought anything to your attention. She's being dramatic. She needs to realize that being an athlete means the coach is going to give you feedback, and if she doesn't like how I give it, she's had the chance to transfer. It's like, all right, dude, that's that. If that's your take on coaching, I'm only here for a year. I'm not gonna change anything. When he saw it, like, because I had her start on the treatment table, and then I did bring her to the ground just in case she passed out. She was closer to the floor instead of like falling off of the treatment table. And he saw me crouch down, like talking to her, and like, there was one point where I put my hand on her chest to try and get her to like slow her breathing down, and hopefully like that pressure of my hand helped calm her down. And then I moved my hand to her stomach to just try and get a little more like diaphragmatic breathing, just to again slow her down. Um, when he saw me crouch down, he kind of like looked at her, scoffed, and like rolled his eyes. Luckily, he didn't say anything to her because I think that really would have been like the biggest trigger. Um, but I tried my best to shield, like put myself in between like her view of him, not necessarily like his view of her. So to this day, I don't know if she knows that he saw. I really wasn't gonna ask after the fact and risk all of this happening again. Um, but I would say that just in general, his presence made her tense up unless they were like on good terms. Because every now and then, like if he was harsh on her, he would like follow up with her like and check in after practice. This unfortunately just seemed to not be one of their good term weeks, and he just wasn't having it until afterwards.
I have another kind of follow-up question. So I know you talked about maybe feeling like then you needed to activate EMS. I guess like in that situation, like what would your expectation be of EMS once they got there? Like what are you kind of looking for them to take control of in that situation?
Truthfully, I was more concerned that she was going to pass out from all the hyperventilating that she was doing, and if she did, I would have wanted EMS to be notified at least, just so that, you know, like I can take pulse ox, I can take blood pressure, I can monitor all of that, but I think if, I couldn't get her to come back from passing out, like we don't have oxygen at Columbia College, so if she passed out and, CPR like needed to be started or anything like that, just kind of at least notifying them and having them on their way versus realizing that we needed them and they weren't contacted was my train of thought. But if USC does anything differently than that with in I guess like any situation, like I'd love to hear about that.
I'm trying to think of kind of past scenarios. I know Columbia College like has a different kind of setup, I'm sure. Do you guys have like on-site mental health of any capacity that you could like take the athlete to?
Yeah, so actually leading up to this event, I referred her to the counselor, and she knew, like we had been in constant communication about like, hey, I've noticed that you're not your usual self, like I don't think that you're doing okay. And I told her that I would help her take that first step, and I actually sent the referral email to the school's counselor. Um, and I told her that if she felt comfortable with me being kept in the loop, that she could let this counselor know, that, any updates that he gives, he can feel free to share with me. But she said she went to one meeting with him and didn't really like him, and we don't have any other counselors on site. Um, the last year's counselor, apparently all of the athletes loved, this athlete in particular loved, but that counselor is no longer working at the school, and she just didn't feel comfortable opening up to a man. And she said that her insurance wouldn't cover any other like therapy or counseling sessions. So She was like, I don't like him. I've tried reaching out to the previous lady and it didn't work out, and I don't have anyone else to talk to. And I mean, I can only do so much of checking in and everything like that, but also I was hesitant to not cross that boundary of like, hey, I'm your AT and your counselor. Also, I don't know how to deal with any of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that can definitely be hard, especially when that's like the only resource they have on campus. Obviously, you can't tell them like go spend $300 every session for it. Like that's not like feasible in this economy, obviously. But since you asked, like here at USC, we have Sarah Knoll, that's like our main point of contact. And I know there's other services. I've heard through the grapevine that mixed signals in terms of if they like them or not. Um, at my site right now, they're going through like a weird change where they just got rid of our main kind of mental health support. And we're getting a new person in that's actually starting tomorrow. So it's kind of funny that we're having this right now. Um, but yeah. I had a question. I'm finding it. I guess going forward, with this athlete, like have you guys I don't want to say gotten stronger through this, but like has there been other moments where you've kind of like used that to continue your care? That makes sense.
Yeah, thankfully after that incident, I guess you could call it,
Mm,
she hasn't had any other like episodes. It was pretty close to the end of season anyway. I think her being a senior really helped the case, and knowing that she doesn't have to play for that coach anymore, was a big green flag in this situation. She does still check in and just pops by every now and then, like once a week, once or twice a week, just to say hi and we just chat. But yeah, there were other like mental health related incidents in the season, but it seems now that soccer's not in season, that main stressor for her is no longer occurring, which is nice. It is nice to just see her like just happier in general and just more bubbly, like her
yeah,
personality, and not just so stressed and preoccupied all the time. Um, I mean,
that's
she's doing
good.
great now.
Yeah. I guess last kind of question for me that I have for you is because we're just talking about like mental health, like because you said that obviously was like a hard thing for you to handle. Like, did you use your support in terms of like having people that you go to talk to and deal with things like this?
I definitely ran this situation or incident, I guess. I don't really know what the right way to call it is. With one of the new full-times at Columbia College, but it wasn't entirely the most beneficial conversation. They were like, yeah, I would have done the same thing. Like, you talked to her, you tried to calm her down, you were ready to monitor vitals, but it just didn't feel productive. Like, we as a staff don't have the power to, increase the budget and like
Yeah.
get more mental health providers, or, you know, like streamline what that process looks like at Columbia College. And so it just like it almost feels counterproductive at times to talk about it, because it's like,
Mm,
we do what they tell us to do and like we follow the steps that we need to, like the appropriate chains of command, but more often than not, nothing really comes out of it. And a lot of it just seems to be that the female athletes don't really always feel comfortable opening up to a male clinician.
yeah.
I could be wrong, and there could be a female one, but we were told through athletics that we're only to contact one person, and that just
Hmm.
happens to be a male. So I would say like bigger picture, unlimited budget, me being at this site for more than a year, I think mental health definitely needs to be one of the areas that their budget is invested in.
Yeah.
It just seems like, we are technically a small campus, but we have almost 400 athletes, which compared to other schools is a small number, but for this college, like I think
Hmm.
almost half of the student population is athletes.
Okay, yeah.
I think that this kind of just highlights that we need more access to it, or we need like a streamlined process, or you
Hmm.
know, not always having to rely on campus PD because technically the EAP says like if 911's called, campus PD is called.
Hmm.
I don't really know what campus PD would have done in that moment other than dial 911 for me, but it's yeah. So it's a little frustrating, I guess, at times to zoom out. But
Yeah. And I
unfortunately,
understand that. I feel like sometimes I relate when it's like, your time there's kind of limited, so it's like you can't fully implement certain things, but I think it's good that you have been like talking to staff and like kind of highlighting it and hopefully, you know, they kind of are starting to get the message that like, wow, we really do need like not just one male because I think that's is pretty huge. Like, you don't just have one women's sports team. Like, you have a lot of women's sports teams, and like at the end of the day, like if a majority of the female population doesn't feel comfortable opening up to this one guy, like something has to come of that. So, I think even that step is still doing something, even though it's not like sadly what we want right now. But, Kef, do you have any other closing remarks?
Not really, no. I think it sounds like you did, everything in your bandwidth at the time, and that maybe the bigger, issue, if there is one, is kind of lack of mental health services at the university. I don't know if it's been the same coach for a while or whatever, but it seems like maybe he was a trigger for, especially for her, but maybe for other people. So I know mental health, kind of programming and education for coaches, like, can be a hard thing to offer and get uptake on, but like can also be really beneficial in those situations to kind of emphasize an understanding between everyone on the staff. So you could maybe have like a debrief that would have felt beneficial or productive or any of those things. But I think within your bandwidth and what was available to you, you did everything that you could have. And it's nice to see that she is also doing better now out of season. I know those situations can be hard in the moment, but I'm definitely like in that moment, you were the perfect person, the perfect place to handle that.
awesome. I appreciate you guys. I don't have anything else to add. Um, I think that your guys' insight was really helpful and, it does, even if it's just to this group, it does open up the conversation that, this is a prime example of a place that, like you guys said, needs better access to either more mental health care clinicians or just a better approach to it
Yeah.
instead of just like a redesign. But we'll see what their budget has.
All right, guys. I think this was a good first meeting. I'll see you guys in February. Bye.